Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the Radical Sessions Chapter 4. We call this session Innovation and Sustainability, Empowering Change in All Industries. So before starting, a big thank you to Bill Aulet and the Martin Trust Center at the MIT for helping us organizing these webinars. A big hug also to our partners, Enel, Daimler, Pfizer, P&G, Sigfox. My name is Alberto Rodriguez. I am the co-founder of TheCUBE, and I will conducting this fascinating panel. Let me introduce our guests. First, Ralph. Ralph, hello, Ralph Dimena. How are you?
Hi, Alberto.
Ralph, you are the Chief Revenue Officer of Decisiv, okay? And you have been in the role of President of Global Services and Solutions at Michelin. I am pronouncing right with my perfect French.
Perfect.
Gaëtan
can help us if we're off. Okay.
Yeah.
From an American ear, it's perfectly.
We are hosting a European sustainability chapter, although Bill is hosting us. And you are responsible, Ralph, of all revenue generating activities and go-to-market and business development and Decisiv. So you will tell us about your business in some minutes. Let me also introduce Iker. Hola, Iker. How are you?
Very well.
Iker is the founder of Zubi Labs. And Zubi Labs is co-creating companies that seek to generate a positive impact by using the company as an instrument to achieve economic, social, and environmental profitability. So, Iker, you are the perfect guest for this chapter. Welcome.
Thank you.
And last, Gaëtan. Gaëtan, how are you?
Good.
Gaëtan, you're now based in Paris right now? Yeah?
That's correct.
And Gaëtan is member of the Breakthrough Energy Ventures. And this is a very interesting organization, Gaëtan, because you invest in companies that leverage innovative technologies to help address climate change. And this was founded in 2015, right?
That's correct. Yeah. It's Bill Gates after the COP21.
Wow, this is amazing. So, and you are supporting like 70 companies on this topic. So, welcome. Yep. So probably all of you are, you know perfectly how innovation and sustainability are related. But let us introduce this topic. And how do you see innovation in this new concept of sustainability, and what are your thoughts on this? And we can begin with Ralph. How are you, Ralph?
Great. So thanks, Alberto. So at Decisiv, we're all about a service software platform where we created a category around service relationship management. And so the innovation is simply to improve and create an ecosystem where at the point of service, everything that needs to touch that vehicle can be delivered at that point of service at whoever is touching that vehicle, and that there's 360-degree visibility of that service event for all the actors in the ecosystem. Now, the link to sustainability is simply taking friction out of all of the logistics supply chain and ensuring that all of those vehicles, those commercial vehicles and those commercial assets are running as effectively and as efficiently as possible. And that when they are running in a way that keeps their environmental footprint as optimized as possible, and the way it was optimized when the OEM created the vehicle. So we're really working on those preventative and those scheduled maintenances, making sure that we bring all that information together for all of our partners. Everybody can contribute and can make decisions on that asset in the most effective way to keep that asset up and running at all times.
That's nice, because this has a huge impact on climate change, for sure. And also investing, right, Gaëtan? Because impact investing it's on the rise right now.
Oh, yeah.
So last
It is
year,
big.
2020, the annual impact investor survey released in June shares data compiled from nearly 300 of the world's leading impact investors. And these investors, and you are among these investors, collectively manage over 400 billion on impact investing assets. So what do you think about this, Gaëtan? How are you dealing with this topic of investing?
Well, first, let me just say for the viewers that interestingly enough, I was part of the first wave of clean tech in the early 2000s as an entrepreneur. So in 2006, when I met Bill Aulet, actually at MIT, he started a class called Energy Ventures, which I took, and our goal was to create ventures to try to address climate change. So I formed a company called Curion that was doing management of nuclear waste and environmental waste. And as an entrepreneur, I faced the crisis of 2008, 2009, 2010, and in 2011, we were really hard pressed to find any types of investor who had the stomach to invest in such companies. So for us, we ended up finding miraculously a customer in need in the form of TEPCO, the energy company that managed Fukushima, which underwent a catastrophe. And then the company was acquired in 2016. So we were one of the few miraculous survivors, I would say, of that era. And I think, when you look at what's happening right now, it's fantastic, because when Bill Gates thought about creating Breakthrough Energy Ventures in 2015, it was because basically he went at COP21, and what was presented there in rough schematics was, okay, if you look at what we need to do in 2050, fully 50 gigatons of CO2 that we need to not emit, we have no solutions for right now. We're making assumptions. Some technologies will come, and there are like some great discussions, but there is a clear lack of investment in terms of trying to bring those technologies to live and to exist. So Breakthrough Energy Ventures was one of those funds that, Bill is the figurehead. It was basically Bill going to a bunch of other tech billionaires, Jeff Bezos, Xavier Niel in France, Hasso Plattner in Germany, who founded SAP. So not exclusively North American. This is why I'm excited to be in Europe and be part of a European type of podcast. So it's not exclusively North American. And they said, look, the way that you need to invest in clean tech companies, in impact companies, has to be very different than the way you think of investing in impact companies, in software companies, right? So that has created, I think, together with a bunch of other people who are either successful entrepreneurs who survived this first, relative failure, if I may say, because the crisis that extinguished the first wave of clean tech was not clean tech related. It was a real estate crisis, right? Fundamentally, it was a subprime in 2008, 2010. But this group now of people are saying, look, A, we need to do this. We have no choice. B, there is a big phenomenon that's happening right now that is around pricing externalities, right? In the history of economics, we've never dared put a price on carbon. And generally speaking, on resources extracted from the ground based on their environmental impact. We are literally on the verge of agreeing worldwide that this needs to have a price tag on it, which, if you have to say something about the human species, if you want to be optimistic, that's fantastic. That the fact that we're able to agree and say, okay, now there is an environmental aspect to all of this, and this has to be priced. And that's, to me, it's just amazing. I want to be optimistic about it. And so the fact that now there are investors agreeing that startups need to come in and completely change the way that we make things, which is probably the hardest area to invest in, making actual hard things, right? To me, it's just exciting. It's super exciting. So.
Amazing. So Ralph, you were in the business of improving moving assets or improving vehicles and routes in order to have an impact. But Iker Iker, for what we have seen, Iker, one of the main focuses of Zubi Labs right now is housing and sustainable construction, right? So what makes this area so important to meet sustainable development goals, according to your view?
Yeah, we do. We do a bunch of stuff, and maybe I have, as an entrepreneur, I have the issue of sometimes when I stumble on rocks, I want to solve them, and so I justify myself with a venture builder to, in terms of. In a regular company, you'd be called, you don't have focus, but if you create a venture builder, you can do very random things, very different things. And still, it's other CEOs that are running them, so it's fine and it's allowed. So so essentially as Zubi Labs, so I also went to MIT for my MBA, and as actually at the time when Ken Morris was leaving the e-center and Aulet was coming in, and I started there a fintech. It's called Flywire. 12 years ago, and this year it IPO. But actually before, in 2014, so I ran it for 4 years, this company out of between Boston and Valencia is where I'm based. I decided to come back, and maybe I had my we call here in Spain the 40 years crisis. Maybe I had it at the 30 years. It was really the first time in my life when I said, what do I actually want to do with my life? Up to that point, it was like a very linear. It's like good grades, good business school, start a company. Now it's like you have to make it a success. And at that time, I realized I would actually want to start companies that, besides a market return, could aim for some sort of a social environmental value, and that's kind of seen as how can we solve some of the challenges that we live in with the company as a tool, and that's how I started this, and actually very random things, right? It's not coming from a fintech, it's not all. It's like our first project was actually a school. So we have Imagine Montessori School. It's 2 schools we have in Valencia, and then from there we thought of creating an environment, a community, and seeing that real estate was very distant to the values and the sort of ambitious objectives we wanted to have. We actually bought the land ourselves and started this project, which is Barrio la Pinada, really creating sustainable towns. It's a district we're developing in Valencia, and that hopes to reinvent some of the issues we live in cities, and sometimes it's just how things are designed. We're used to maybe working in one place, having children go to school in another, and then having fun in another, working, and then we complain about pollution and spending time on the car and all that stuff. So it's the kind of that architecture, right? How things are linked to each other are critical. And then from there, with these 2 different projects, we started branching out in very different things around waste generation, and not as smart as Gaëtan. We are not near nuclear waste. But kind of still convinced about, hey, all these externalities, not just negative externalities, but negative and positive externalities, are being brought more and more into the pricing mechanisms of capitalism. So that creates amazing opportunities for everyone. And then, we create CoCircular, which is another company focused on construction waste and enabling, or at least avoiding it to end up in landfills, and then created different projects, a boutique consulting firm as well, hands-on impact around impact research and measurement, and that was up to COVID. So we're kind of having fun creating companies, building on talent, having co-investors, and then up to COVID, and then we realized that we started seeing a lot of companies that were having a hard time in terms of getting financing. And we created the second arm, which is our investment management or asset management arm, which is Zubi Capital, and with the idea of creating new strategies that could create some additionality in the market, so it could complement things that maybe were gaps. And we started with a venture debt fund. It's actually the first impact venture debt fund, pan-European wise. And the idea of being an anchor investor in these funds, with our approach of quality capital. So in some sense, in Zubi Labs, what we try to is mobilize talent, we mobilize co-investors, and hopefully create this a virtuous cycle in terms of creating create returns that we can invest and be more ambitious in terms of the challenges that we solve, how we approach them, etc. And then we are right now actually in the process of creating a third party, which is more a wealth management arm, also to mobilize capital beyond our company and our funds. So I would say, we take we are more motivated about the challenges we're solving, and then the how is kind of the result, whether it's more tech or less tech, whether it's an industry like real estate that maybe doesn't have a great reputation, especially in Spain. So we try to be bold around the issues, kind of putting aside how easy or how the projects are seen, but we just in some sense we may be naive or reckless enough trying to start things that are many are based on Valencia, although our team spread across Spain, but are global themes.
Well, I agree with you that building a venture builder allows you to test lots of things, different things, and instead of losing your point of view, you can do lots of things. And first of all, congrats, because for the rest of guests, Iker has been founding one of our unicorns in Spain, and we don't have a lot of them. Probably we have 5. Right, so it's yeah.
Well, I think it's some of the, I was happy when they this IPO, because I think it's also showing that talent can come from anywhere in the world. I think the Valencian office had a lot to do with this company, and I think entrepreneurship is I guess it's for us about planting these seeds, right, that then grow into trees and beautiful forests, and then we're kind of that initial spark of making it happen. So right now, trying to Gaëtan was mentioning fintech. Now trying to be a bit more focused. At least we say we're all about impact investing, right? That's all we do, impact. And then within that, there's the world. The whole world is being transformed. So pretty much we can do many things. But yeah, you guys know well what a company builder is and how it works.
So we have here at TheCUBE in Madrid, we have a partner we have here. We are hosting the NL Innovation Hub. And well, these guys 10 years ago, they decided to put all their R&D investments in sustainability, and now they are market leaders in this. And they have a sentence. They say that innovation is the tool and sustainability is the goal. So I'm talking about our background and talking about startups and big corporations. How do you see the future of sustainability? Startups has something to say in this world, or are big corporations the ones that has the means and the impact? And how can they collaborate in this new world? This is for all of you. So,
well, maybe I could maybe take that
Ralph.
first, because it's interesting. I'm the only one here, I think, that didn't graduate from MIT.
Don't worry, you're still in time.
I met Bill when I was at Michelin, and we were doing some of the putting in place, an internal entrepreneurship approach, an incubator approach, and Michelin has a very, very strong thesis around sustainability, and lots of work around how to make both the core product more sustainable, but also use material science and other solutions in order to bring sustainability to market. And during the course of that work, actually got to know a company like Decisiv, which is a partner. And I don't know if we can still call Decisiv a startup or not. They've been around about 20 years, but they're a small company growing very, very quickly. And the opportunity that I see now with marrying a small agile company with a larger company, which has a strong thesis around sustainability, just allows them to move faster, allows them to test more innovations in the market, allows them to try and understand how they can access different markets and access, the different minds and hearts of different people who have, maybe more of an orientation towards some type of a sustainability approach, or towards just a slightly different orientation than maybe the classic investors in that company would. So it's a great way to marry those together. And the other thing I see is, a company like Decisiv, which is working in the automotive space, I think it parallels very much what Gaëtan was saying about, as soon as the world puts a price on carbon, all of these companies are going to start to turn around and look for not just technology, but other companies that can help them manage that spend there, or that cost, however you want to look at it, in an intelligent way. And so you're going to need companies like Decisiv and other companies which put technological solutions, software solutions around things like automotive maintenance, so that they can manage that carbon footprint effectively and have visibility to it. So I think there's a nice intersection there between some of the, what I'll call the more industrial, larger companies, and certainly their ability to work with small companies to find new solutions to these problems that are only going to become more important in the future.
Hello, Bill. How are you?
Bill.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting everybody and being the glue of this session, Bill.
Yeah, Ralph mentioned Bill, and he directly popped up. It's like magic.
That's it. No,
Yeah,
I mentioned Bill at the beginning, but he didn't appear. So I think, Ralph, you have more power over Bill.
You have to call 3 times. You have to mention 3 times Bill, and then it's.
He got excited because I reminded him I didn't actually graduate from MIT, so he decided to show up. And
yeah, I just didn't want to be here at the beginning for the fireworks between the French and the Spanish. I just wanted to let that kind of die down, and then I was going to show up.
So then let me make 2 statements. First statement, even though I'm French and I'm running a European fund, we're making a Spanish investment before we're making a French one. So it's a testament to a lot of the innovation that exists in Spain. Second, to piggyback on the conversation, Alberto, on large corporation, the one fact that I would say is probably the most factual and demonstrative of the fact that they're needed and welcomed more in impact is that traditionally in venture, what's called a strategic or corporate venture capitalist was only welcome in the later rounds of funding, when there was a feeling that, hey, they're going to help scale the business. Mm-hmm. Now the business is grown enough and the technology is protected well enough that you don't have to force them into a strategic agreement of sorts and whatnot. In climate, we see just the opposite. We welcome, and we have in our term sheets, co-investors that come from the corporate world as early as seed stage, because they're really hungry for next generation technologies. And also, quite frankly, I think there is now a clear movement of talent in physics, in chemistry, in engineering towards innovative companies that really have front and center net zero solutions. And so, you talk to Exxon, you talk to Shell, these are the most obvious ones, and they're not able to hire as easily as they could before, and their talent's moving away from them. And so they're really eager, both for a reason of partnering with innovation, also because they have employee pressure to say, look, we care, and the best way to show you care is to be involved. And the best way for us investors to show that there is still value in these guys being part of this whole supply chain, kind of converting all of this, is to welcome them on the earlier stage of financing, as opposed to tell them, oh, we only need you guys later on, because they still can bring a lot to the table. And the number one thing I can mention is, because of this situation, now we have access to locations where we can do, a 20th scale or a 5th scale demonstrations, whereas before it was just the biggest barrier to taking a physical company and scaling it up was like, where are you going to demonstrate that this works, right? And now we have that access, so it's fantastic.
Can I just comment on that, Alberto?
Yes.
I think Gaëtan's point is dead on. There's this, when we see entrepreneurship, we think of, Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and IT. That's just one form of entrepreneurship. When you get to these problems of climate and energy, you need to have the infrastructure, you need to have the scalability, otherwise it doesn't work. So the fundamentals of the industry are much, much different, very capital intensive. Yet we have stuck in our mind this old version, and we're not going to get to the fruit that's high on the tree unless we work with corporates. And to crystallize that, we're now working with Houston on how do we deal with climate. We would never have been working with Houston before on this. But why are we working with Houston? Because they have the assets, they have on the ground, they know how grid works, they have people who know how to drill on the ground, they know the need to have both of these elements is essential to solve this very complicated problem. And that's why, the talent still goes, to Gaëtan, your point is the talent still seems to be attracted to the other ones. But now when they think about impact, they realize, hey, we've got to partner with these big companies to get the impact that we really want. Otherwise, we're not putting a dent in this problem.
Bill, I have a question related to this, because obviously in the last years, well, the supremacy of American companies related to technology has been incredible. But what about consumer consciousness related to this sustainability issue? Because Europe, and now we have 2 French people and two Spanish people, we are considered greener than the US today, and probably it's because of the mindset of people here in Europe. And for example, in the case of Norway, 72% of vehicles that are sold last year were electric vehicles, and Norway is considered one of the most sustainable country worldwide, and we are proud because it's European. So infrastructure is okay, but also consumer consciousness about this topic. I don't know if what is your point of view related to the US people and the US consumers?
Yeah, so first of all, you're absolutely right. Consumer behavior patterns have shown over and over again that we don't value that. And this gets back to the point of putting a price on carbon. So consumer behavior is very challenging in the United States. The pressure, the Scandinavian countries. By the way, Norway is very green, but they produce a lot of oil that they ship over here for us to use
There is a lot of oil, and they have the money to invest in impact companies.
No, and but I give them credit, but they have more of a collectivism mentality, where in the United States we have more of an individual mentality, and that's in the DNA of the country. But you know what? The world is getting to be a much more integrated place, and these cultural things. It's funny, even here in the United States, you used to be able to tell if someone was from Boston, if someone was from New York, if someone was from New Jersey or Philadelphia. Now you can't tell. Everybody has the same accent. You know what it is? It's Hollywood accent. It's from the movies that we get. And and the people on this, when Gaëtan speaks English, it's not really English, it's American, right? And we're all these kind of cultural things are changing, and I believe consumer behavior over time is going to look more equal to each other. But historically, if you go back to someone who's 60, 70 years old, they want as big a car as they can. They're going to drive it. They want gas to be under $1 a gallon. And if it isn't, well, then something's wrong. We just have to get out of that mentality. I'm sorry. Will carbon pricing do that? Carbon pricing will cause a change, but I can tell you firsthand, it's very hard to change old white guys who are in their 60s or 70s.
No,
that's me. That's me, Alberto. That was the joke here. Just didn't translate well, but that's me.
I understood it.
No, but you were very sustainable playing basketball where you were young. We know this, so this is not. But definitely, it's a worldwide issue. There are no frontiers on the carbon footprint, and obviously we need to treat this as countries. But what we think could make countries come together and act on this climate change.
But I think, Alberto, I would just build a little bit on Bill's point, and I do think it's more of a generational question in the United States. Than if you talk to my teenagers, the young adults, they're very, very climate conscious, and they're thinking about that, and to the point where they may not even be thinking about owning a car, and if they do, they want it to be an electric vehicle or something like that, and there it's probably more of a question of, can they afford the current available electric vehicles at their point in life or not, but they're very climate conscious. So I think to Bill's point, as the younger generation starts to move through the economy and gain more of a voice, both an economic voice and a political voice, I think you're going to start to see some of that change occur, even in the United States. Certainly in Europe, we've seen probably at least a generation ahead the sensitivity to that, but I think it's coming even in the United States.
Great. And talking about this, Ralph, it's a generational probably topic, but also Iker, it's a topic that you can treat, and if you can explain to us a little bit more about your project as Barrio la Pinada, how close are you to making these sustainable communities a reality also with the new generations or even old generations?
So, the idea, we tend to jump into industry we don't really know anything. That's kind of what entrepreneurs we do. And then you start creating the teams around, right? Maybe, the difference, when I started 12 years ago at MIT, it was called peer transfer, now it's called Firewire. This thing of partnerships, open innovation, all that stuff has changed dramatically, right? So in gigs that you need partnerships, you need infrastructure. Yeah, it's a very different. I think that builds on the discussion of climate. And when you think about our cities, that also links to this. And many times you don't have all the elements under control because, start off, most of the decisions are held by administrations, right? And I become very jealous when I go to a smart cities event, and then I talk with someone in Dubai that says, oh, if we want flying cars, we just change the law. I wish we could in Spain change the law for flying cars or for other things. And then I start realizing, competitiveness is not so much about companies, it's about how regulations evolve by the administrations in order for you to innovate and adapt. So, and that also links, and then you link the administration, doesn't want to do things that are politically not very popular. So then you start, they react to the consumer. And I simplify and I put consumers in three buckets, kind of those that are convinced about sustainability, those that are kind of open to, hearing, and then those that are just skeptical. And the ones that are skeptical just don't spend time. Regulation will catch up on them, right? So we, at least at Zubi Labs, we like to work on the folks in the middle. Those that are already convinced, are going to spend time, going to research all that stuff. But I think the ones that drive the markets are the ones in the middle. Right? Those that, whether it's by rigor, whether it's by just make it easy for me to take action. So, when we started this project, the district, how I was born is, I was looking for a site for the school. So I asked all my families at the school, where do you want the school to be? And they told me, if I could choose, I would want them downstairs. I would want the school downstairs to where I live, right? Just on the streets. Like, people organize their life around where they have the school and they live. So, and I said, why don't actually we create a project like a district over 300,000 square meters as a startup? So we actually, the first thing we do is we create a landing page and say, here's our dream. We want more green, we want less gray. We want to maybe start sharing more versus buying more. Maybe we want our children to, grow up again playing on the streets, right? And then we had a bunch of people that we call co-creators started working with us, and also to understand that when you're pushing the edge, I think you're gonna crash against the wall unless you actually have some sort of validation and kind of some reception by your future customer, your future user. And that, I think that kind of sets the frontier for innovation in some sense, because you don't want to be too early. So we started saying, okay, let's look around also for projects that have been ambitious around carbon, around water consumption, around energy, about mobility, around social inclusion, diversity, vibrant communities, all that stuff. And we started looking, projects in the north of Europe, for instance, and around the world. And we say, hey, how do we take this into a Spanish cultural setting, and then start thinking about materials. We actually set up a wood construction company as well. So looking kind of the whole value chain, and what things made sense to integrate vertically, whether there's we work through open innovation also with partners and corporates, and we create this La Pinada lab. And these, we start things, and we realize everything starts small but can be big. So we thought, hey, why not actually develop other projects? So we haven't actually made public, but we're working through other projects, say maybe this is the first of many districts, communities, in terms of contributing to the rethinking, and hopefully the consumer will embrace that. And hopefully we have enough critical mass that someone living wherever you guys live will say, I don't want to live in this shitty house. I want to live in something like La Pinada, but I want someone to make it here, right? And I think when that kind of becomes a bit more feasible, it's also when there is a pull from the consumer on the market. And that's so we think through all these initiatives that we create from an angle of catalytic initiative, inspiration, so that others also start embedding many of the things that we do.
Well, definitely we have to go to La Pinada. Bill, you have to come to Spain. You have a lot of things to do here. Going to see Iker, you have to come here to go with me to the south of Spain, to Zahara. You have a lot of work to do.
Oh yeah.
In the coming months.
Can I just comment? And by the way, I think it's great to I'm the least. You have 3 people here who do a lot of international business, and people like Iker and Gaëtan, they're almost transnational business people. And then I think, Ralph, your point, the people who are now going to Sloan, they're very interested in sustainability. If they have 2 jobs, they're more interested in sustainability than how much you're going to make in A or B, or at least that's what they say. But this is very generational. I just want to comment on one other thing that Iker said. I love the way he splits it up. You've got people who believe and people who don't believe, and then you got the people in the middle. We got to convince those people in the middle, right? That's it. And Elliot Cohen, who Gaëtan and Iker know well, he started PillPack. He always says in our class, he says, when did PillPack start working? When I stopped trying to convince the skeptics and I started working with the people who believed and I could convince. Don't waste your time on the skeptics. They're, as Jeffrey Moore said in Crossing the Chasm, they're the laggards. They'll come along once everybody else says. You're wasting time trying to convince them otherwise. And I love the approach that you're going at with Iker. For a Valencian, you're really doing very, very well.
We're a city of entrepreneurship. It's a city of lifestyle as well. We like to spend time on the beach as well. So,
Iker, we are serial entrepreneurs. We have to make sustainability a way of life, and also sustainability as a way of business. And some of you are doing sustainability a way of business. So I'm really glad that this is a very important topic, not only in our lives, but also in impact investing. So thank you for everything. Bill, thank you for connecting all these dots and to have this 4th season a success and a European chapter. And thank you to all of you, and see you in next year, in 2022. Hopefully in person. Bill.
Yes, that would be wonderful. But it's still great to see all of you even online, if that's the best we can do in these times.
Yes.
What everyone's doing, what you're doing with TheCUBE, Alberto, is just fabulous. We need more entrepreneurs. What you're doing, Gaëtan, with Breakthrough is great. And Iker, it's so great to see peer to peer. Remember that from our classroom all the way up to this, changing millions of people's lives. And Ralph, it's good to see you get out of Michelin and get out there and unleash the inner entrepreneur in you. This is marvelous.
You've been trying to convince me to do that for years. I know.
We love Michelin. We still got to work with those corporates, but all of us have an inner entrepreneur that needs to be unleashed. We're born that way.
So we're planning, if the virus helps, we are planning to be in June and to make a live session with you, Bill, at the Martin Trust Center. So Ralph, Iker, Gaëtan, and especially Bill, thank you for this chapter that is amazing, and the topic is really, really important for everybody. And have a nice Christmas. Okay.
Feliz
Thank
Navidad.
you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye bye.